Once upon a time, in a small village nestled beside the vast blue sea, there lived a humble fisherman named Kofi. Every day, Kofi would wake up before the sun, cast his nets into the water, and hope for a good catch. Though he had little, his heart was as big as the ocean. But the sea was not always kind. On this day, Kofi worked from dawn to dusk without catching a single fish. Weary and hungry, he stood ankle-deep in the waves, whispering a hopeful prayer to the sea. Just as Kofi was about to pack up and leave, his net tugged hard. With all his might, he pulled expecting a heavy fish, but instead, he found a creature unlike any he had ever seen, a fish with scales that shimmered like rainbows. To Kofi's astonishment, the fish spoke. "Kind fisherman," it said, its voice soft as the waves, "I am the princess fish. Spare my life, and I will grant you 3 wishes. But beware, for your choices will shape your destiny." Kofi thought carefully. His small hut often leaked during storms. "For my first wish, I ask for a sturdy house," he said. The princess fish nodded, and with a flick of her tail, the wish was granted. "Thank you, princess fish," Kofi said, bowing deeply. But the princess fish warned, "Remember, choose your next wishes wisely. Greed has ruined many before you." The next morning, the villagers were astounded by Kofi's new house. They crowded around, asking how it had appeared overnight. Kofi smiled but said little, fearing they would not believe the truth. Though Kofi kept quiet, rumors spread. Some believed he had found treasure. Others thought he had made a deal with the sea spirits. The whispers grew louder, and Kofi felt their weight. As the days passed, Kofi began to notice the villagers' needs. Many were poor, like he once was, and struggled to find enough food. With the princess fish's warning in mind, he decided his second wish. "I wish for the village to always have enough food," Kofi declared. The villagers woke to a miracle. Trees drooped under the weight of ripe fruits, and fish leaped joyfully in their nets. The village celebrated with a grand feast, singing Kofi's praises, though he humbly stayed quiet about the fish. Not all were content. A few villagers, driven by envy, began to wonder how Kofi had brought such abundance. They whispered among themselves, plotting ways to uncover his secret. That night, one of the envious villagers crept to Kofi's house and overheard him speaking to the princess fish by the shore. The villager's eyes gleamed with greed as he realized the power Kofi held. The next morning, the villager shared what he had learned with others. Soon, the entire village buzzed with the news of the magical fish. People began approaching Kofi, demanding he use his final wish for their desires. "What should I do?" Kofi wondered aloud. The princess fish had warned him to be wise, but the villagers' cries for wealth, power, and more were deafening. He knew his next choice would have lasting consequences. That evening, Kofi returned to the shore. "Princess Fish," he said, his voice heavy with worry, "the villagers demand more wishes. I don't know what to do." "The heart of the greedy can never be satisfied," the princess fish said. "Use your final wish not to please others, but to protect what matters most." By morning, the villagers surrounded Kofi's house. "Use your last wish for us," they shouted. "We deserve riches and more." Kofi felt the weight of their demands pressing on his soul. Kofi knew he couldn't satisfy everyone. He closed his eyes, thinking of the princess fish's advice. When he opened them, he knew what he had to do. "Princess Fish," Kofi said that night by the shore, "for my final wish, I ask for the wisdom and strength to guide my village through any challenges." With his wish granted, Kosi returned to the village. Though he had no riches or treasures to give, he became a wise and just leader, helping his people work together to prosper. The villagers were used to relying on luck and wishes, but Kosi knew they needed something greater: unity. "Let's rebuild our village together," he said, gathering the villagers in the town square. "With each of us sharing our skills, we can create a life of plenty." At first, the villagers were hesitant, but as they began to work together, planting crops, repairing homes, and sharing tools, they discovered a joy greater than the promise of gold. They began to trust one another again. One villager, Badu, had been the greediest of all. But as he saw the fruits of the village's teamwork, he began to change. "Kosi," he said one day, "I see now that riches mean nothing without people to share them with." One by one, others followed Badu's example. Those who had once hoarded food or wealth began to give freely, and the village grew stronger with every act of kindness. One night, as Kosi walked by the shore, he saw a familiar light glimmer beneath the waves. The princess fish appeared, her scales shimmering like 1,000 stars. "You have done well, Kosi," she said. "Your heart has remained true. As a reward for your wisdom and kindness, I leave this ocean to your village," the princess fish said. "Its bounty will never fail as long as your people remain united." And with that, she disappeared, her light fading into the deep blue sea. True to her word, the ocean became a source of endless blessings. Fish filled the nets, and the tides brought treasures from afar. The villagers learned to take only what they needed, ensuring the sea's gifts remained plentiful. With their newfound prosperity, the villagers began holding an annual festival to honor the sea. They danced, sang, and told stories, always remembering the princess fish and the wisdom she had brought. As the years passed, Kosi grew older, but his lessons lived on. He taught the children to respect the sea, share their blessings, and value each other above all else. "The greatest treasure," he said, "is the bond we share." Though Kosi's time eventually came to an end, the village thrived for generations. And on quiet nights when the moon was bright, some claimed they could still see a faint glow in the waves, the princess fish watching over her people. Years passed, and Kosi became known not just as a fisherman, but as the wise elder of the village. Whenever the villagers faced hard times, they remembered his story and the lesson of the princess fish. And though Kosi's story became legend, the princess fish still swam in the sea, waiting for the next soul who might need her wisdom.
Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share. Thanks for your support.